There were no women in construction for probably the first 10 years. I don't think I ever ran into a single woman in construction during the first 10 years I was in the business. You know, it was, people looked at me funny.
Welcome to All Things Wood Floor, episode 20, brought to you by Wood Floor Business, where the best and brightest in our industry get together for you, the wood floor professional. Come see Wood Floor Business, come be wood floor brilliant. This episode, retire founder, owner, president, Genia Smith of Accent Hardwood Floors, Durham, North Carolina. One of the very few women to spend an entire career in hardwood flooring, slinging wood, and running the big machine. Genie talks about how she got into the business, how she got out of the business, and a lot of what she learned along the way. She is a hoot, people, so crank up your volume. Welcome to All Things Wood Floor. A warm welcome for Genia Smith, Accent Hardwood Floors, Durham, North Carolina. Floor pros around the world, let's get to it. We're back.
We're back. Can you see me?
This is your show now, and you don't have video. Woo!
And I don't have video still.
You know what I say? We could talk our heads off. Let's just talk, and I'll record everything because they're not going to use the video anyway. See, now it's see what you did here. Now, Jeannie, this is your podcast with your Zoom time. Now I work for Kim Walgren and you. And they say there aren't enough women in the industry. I now work for all of them.
Awesome. I'll send you a bill.
That works for me. Oh, okay. Listen, we can roll with this. Jeannie, welcome to All Things Wood Floor. It is a fantastic, I could say we've we've worked together for 2 decades. I got into this literally because of you. And we've talked on the phone a couple of times and now I still can't see you.
Well, I don't know how you got into it because of me. A lot of people have gotten into it because of me. I'm not sure that many of them have ever thanked me.
I will tell you how this happened. So I was in flooring, and in college I studied writing, and then to pay for college I did flooring, and decades went by, and I used to do a lot of consulting and writing for different magazines in New England, and I started doing some little things for Kim at Wood Floor Business, and you wrote an article about black spots, and somebody was driving you crazy about the black spots in the floor, and the article ended, and we just aren't sure what this is, and I went crazy. I started looking at it and reading it and testing it and looking at it and reading it, and I did a bunch of work in a little lab setting and got nothing, and I looked down on the floor, there were black spots everywhere, and I couldn't figure out what I had done. Well, I figured out what I did. I did a bunch of studies on it, and now I get calls all week, every day for the last probably 5 or 6 years on black spots. Everyone thinks they have mold in their flooring. And I because of COVID, everything went camera and computer. That I get more calls on the I have mold in my house thing. And it's because you launched that article that said people with black spots in their floors should check it out.
Well, there you go.
Kim says we're the nation's experts on black floor spots. So we will. So anybody listening to this podcast, just come to me and Jeannie. We got this covered.
Well, I just remember it was like nighttime, and we had this job to finish, and we had these black spots yet again, and it was just crazy trying to scrape them out, and then put universal sealant on them. And that took care of most of it,
Well, you know what? It's interesting because what started, this is what a lot of people I know up here, they used steel wool, which is fine until they started using water-based finishes. And then then we kind of put 2 and 2 together, and you talk to some of the old timers. They were doing, taking bolts and steel wool and soaking it in vinegar and doing ebonizing on flooring and basically burning the flooring and turning it gray. And then I started taking some of those samples from a job I had in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, under a microscope, and it wasn't organic at all. And what mold would want to live on a freshly kiln-dried oak floor with polyurethane on it? It didn't make any sense. You can go in the woods and find it on a rotting stump. But when I tested it, it was metal. Found out that my contractor had to do a patch and a wave, and couldn't get this sander down into it. So he was scraping and rubbing and scraping and rubbing and decided to coat it with water-based finish. And I found metal shavings everywhere. Went back to your article, put the two together, and we've been chatting about it ever since. But see that you put me to work and you didn't even know it. Jeannie, you're with Accent Hardwood Floors in Durham, North Carolina, correct?
That's right.
It just
I sold my business on June 30th.
You did of this year?
Yes.
Well, I know I had heard that you retired. That's a couple of things. I don't know anybody that's ever retired from flooring, so you're already a celebrity.
Well, I'm keeping up my inspector certification, but I sold Accent Hardwood Flooring to Matt Poole.
Okay.
He's doing an awesome job.
Well, you and I had spoken at one point. You had mentioned, is it the New Tread Tire Building, which is kind of a historic building. It used to be an Esso station. Can you see? I used it as my backdrop.
I see that.
Is that the
Yes.
building that you moved into?
That's the build. That's my building.
Wow, that's a beautiful. I don't know when that building was built, but that's a piece of artwork right there in itself.
Yeah, it's undergone a lot of changes. It doesn't quite look like that anymore, but
No, well, you can look. It's really nice when you do a historical Google. It shows that, and then when it was like a car dealership or a tire store, and then it shows your shop today, and
right.
it's interesting. It's beautiful. So now, when did you start Accent, and how did you even get involved in this? As you know, there aren't that many women in flooring, and
No,
I love
there's not.
talking with them. You go first.
Well, I started doing floors, let's see, in about 1980, right about 1980.
Okay.
My father was a wood flooring contractor, but I didn't grow up with him. My parents were divorced. And so I was 20 years old, living in Dallas, working for a company doing god awful concrete work. And I thought anything's got to be better than this.
Yeah.
So I called my dad and I said, do you want to hire me? And I had never nailed a nail in my life. I didn't know the difference between finished nails and common nails. And so I drove up there and I went to work for him. And I made $5 an hour to start. After 2 weeks, he raised me to $6 an hour.
Was that even minimum wage in 1980? I think it might have been $3.75. I remember those days too.
In Fort Smith, Arkansas, it was above minimum wage.
Oh, Portsmouth, Arkansas. You probably own your own hotel.
Right.
But now,
So
back then, did you go to did you go to St. Mary's or LSU or both? I know you did some college there too.
Yeah, I did too. I went to college before this. I dropped out, decided, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I worked for my father for about 4 years. And then I quit him and I went back to school at LSU in Baton Rouge for 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And at that time, I was supporting myself actually doing hardwood floors, on weekends and summer times. And that was another experience. Because I worked for somebody else, and it was in the very early days of hardwood flooring. I'll say that.
Well, the people I spoke with said that you not a problem because you were not only strong, but you were hard-headed and persistent. I know. I speak to some people like Jessica Peterson. She said, boy, if I could just lift these machines, it's just that they've made them heavier and heavier and heavier, I think.
Well, when I first started out here, I worked all by myself, but I had a Toyota van and I had a 2x12 that was probably about 8 foot long. And I rolled my machine out and in by putting it on that 2x12 and backing it down, to the ground.
Yep.
And then that's the way I moved it back up, as I rolled it up and down on that. And that was the old American, 8 Super 8.
Oh, the Super 8, which is the
That was
motor alone was 100 pounds.
Right, and it's a pain in the ass to tear it down. It's not like the Hummels.
Is that the one you had to take? You had to take a wrench and a socket if you had it, and unbolt it
Yeah,
if you were even going to take it apart. Yeah, those are fun.
right. So you had to. I had to take it apart and move it upstairs.
If you had a
Well,
50-foot cord, it weighed 100 pounds.
all right. But that's the way I moved my machines. It was on a 2x10.
Did you have everything in there? Did you do install and sand and finishing, or did you start out just with the sanding and finishing part?
When I started here in Durham, which was 1990, I just sanded mostly.
Okay.
And, I went back to work for my dad for about 3.5 years after I quit school yet again. And I kind of ran his business and I talked him into opening up a little showroom and everything. And then he and I parted ways after 3.5 years because he wanted me to do things the same way that he had always done them. And, I just didn't particularly like that. So it's a toss up as to whether he fired me or I quit. you know,
Oh, you totally walked away from him. He had no say in the matter.
I walked away.
There you go.
I looked for a place to open up a business and I moved here in 1990. And that's where I've been ever since. But it's just part of me.
When did the warehouse and the crews and the location did that come much later, or is that right out of the gate?
It came several years later. When I moved here, I didn't know anything about this area. I researched areas in North Carolina because I had a sister that lived here. And I researched areas and looked at them, and I went and I got all my stuff, and Becky and I moved here. Neither one of us had a job. We didn't know the area, but I worked for several people here for the first probably year and a half that I lived here and knew my way around. And then I took out a little bitty ad and a tiny newspaper that you picked up off of stands called the 50 Nickel, and I finally got more jobs and more jobs. And the guy I was working for finally told me, he said, "You either have to quit work and go to work for yourself, or you have to work for me." So I quit working for him and went into business for myself.
Hey, that pays off.
Well, that's what I came here for.
I think a lot of people have that story. I worked selling industrial equipment as a kid. I loved it, power tools equipment. And then one of my customers that did flooring asked me to come work for him. And he was an idiot. It had nothing to do with me. After about 2 days, he got mad and he threw a hammer through some lady's picture window. And I said, "I can't do this." And my company said, "Why don't you come back and work for us? And you can buy all the equipment and start up your floor company somewhere down the road." Well, one day the president of the company came out, he just laid a bill on my desk. When they give you in a hotel, and listed everything I owed him for phone calls. I didn't realize the phones at work were going off the hook with people hiring me to do their flooring. And he said, I think it's time for you to go. I already had a company checkbook. I went out, I wrote him a check, said thank you. And they were good to me for decades after that. So I was very, very happy about that. You must have gone through some lean years. I can't picture being the only woman on a job site, which even today, I think 99% of my it's funny, 99% of my contractor customers are guys, but all my dealers are 99% women that run the showrooms and the stores and the design centers. You must not have had it easy on job sites. We had a woman working for us for years. She started way back when we had our first location, and she called it the pee in the outhouse years. And I'm like, "What does that mean?" She goes, "I had to walk in the back of the building across the railroad tracks to the outhouse, which was so filthy I wouldn't even use it because that was the only thing we had."
There were never porta potties on the job, until way after I'd been in business for a long time.
Oh, that's not good.
And so, a lot of times when I first started, I worked for a number of years. I laid millions of square feet of paper-faced parquet. Oh. And a lot of times fortunately, there weren't people working. But if there were people working, if there were guys working in the houses, then I had to stop, go to wherever to use the restroom and come back, because I couldn't just pee in the yard like all the guys did.
Right. Or on the golf course or behind a dumpster.
Right. Especially on the golf courses,
Yep.
So, but, it was, There were no women in construction for probably the first 10 years.
Sure.
I don't think I ever ran into a single woman in construction during the first 10 years I was in the business. You know, it was, people looked at me funny.
Right. Yeah, they're probably wondering why. How come she's out working those other guys?
Right. I actually had, when I worked in Arkansas, it never happened to me in North Carolina. I had a couple of people that kind of really made some fairly threatening remarks to me.
Oh, that's not good.
No, but I'm a very tough person. I'll say that.
It's all
There's
you
no way
little petite compact people that my mother was, I think,
I
4'11". My sister's 4'11", and when I was in high school, she had a chip. She was captain of the men's soccer team. Went to college. She became a park ranger. She just retired, and she packs
yeah.
a gun. It's a man's world. When the
I
parks are down, she has to repair and do remodeling. It sounds like you had that same existence. You just
yeah.
keep your nose in
Did
there.
that. I did ask one man, "Are you threatening me?" And that shut him up. I
Yeah.
said, "Are you threatening me?" It was ridiculous. But times changed, and once I moved here, this is a very liberal area, and things, from 1990, I finally hired my first helper, great guy. His name's Robert Honeycutt, and he actually still works for Accent Hardwood Flooring today. He was a baby when I hired
I know, right? Did you have a favorite part of the job? Some people will say, "Oh, I just want to install." Others say, "No, could sand all day long," and some could flip a coin. How
Yeah.
about?
Well, I moved to the land of pier and beam construction,
Sure.
where I was from the land of slab construction.
Ugh.
So it was, I had to learn installation as far as, I had done some of it with my dad, and he had taught me a lot about it. Well, but I mean, I could wreck a 2,000 square foot house in 2 days easy by myself.
That's still
But
tough to do today.
well, we get nested bundles today.
Yeah, right.
It's easier to do with random length.
So remember,
But I mean,
unnested bundle, and you got to count to three.
yeah, but I learned. I learned, and sanding and finishing was the bread and butter. Then my dad would install and lose money on. He said, "Oh, I want the sand and finish job." And I never did understand that thinking,
What did
but
they glue down paper face with then? Was it just like the cold stick, or was it? Did you
no,
finally have the
not
supermastics?
no. It was a PVA. It was a
PVA.
water-based glue. It was an awesome glue. And in fact, we used to buy truckloads of piece parquet, and they're still in business today.
And it came in a lot of shapes and colors and species too.
Oh yeah, all kinds. Most of ours was red oak, but all kinds of different patterns. And in fact, I went to the little mill one time, and really those intricate patterns. Women sat at tables and put together those patterns
Right.
by hand.
Tell me
You
how they
know,
went in. A lot of people don't know about paper face parquet. Tell me simply, how does it go in?
how does it go in? Well, first you make a table saw by
By
yourself.
yourself.
Yeah, you make a table
Get a
saw out of
blade.
plywood. You beat the case off of a skill saw so you can make a zero clearance. And you beat the case off it, run it up to the top of the table. It's zero clearance. You cut the cord off of it and you put a switch on it. And it weighs about maybe 30 pounds. It's very lightweight. And that's your saw that you make. And
Your upside down circular table saw.
that's right. You just bolt it to the plywood. It's a great table saw. I still use one today if I laid any parquet, which thank God I
You
don't.
don't have to, right? But the parquet itself, you have the paperback and then you have the coarse side.
Right, right. It's once you get used to it, it's a very easy job.
Well, that
It
was the
was.
straw that broke the camel's back because this guy that I worked for that threw the hammer through the window, someone sold him paper face parquet. I had never seen it. So he installed it and he called it. He was screaming at the distributor. And this guy's been in he's one of my customers today, Wally Johnson. He's been around forever. And he said, this is terrible. This stuff is junk. I'm sanding and the pieces are flying everywhere. Well, you know, he did, Jeannie. He put the glue down and he
Right, the
put the
paper
paper
down.
down.
Right,
He invented the floating floor. The stuff was flying everywhere. And I'm
right,
like, that's it. I can't, I'm done. I'll go back to my old job. It was
yeah.
insanity. So it's been 20 years. Wally Johnson came in my office a few weeks ago and he had a package for me. It was 2 of the paper face parquet from that exact installation because the guy returned it all. It comes back around.
Right.
But
But
what
I
did you
mean,
do
back
when you were
then,
done with it? You wash it, right?
yeah, you take them, we had 3.5 gallon buckets and you put like dishwashing soap and a liquid and a sponge and you wash it once and then you wash it again and just peel it off.
And then you sand a finish?
Yeah, and then sand and finish. I mean, we made so much stuff of our own back in those days. We made putty. We made our own, our putty we made. Well, you couldn't buy just wood putty. We had to make ours. Cornstarch, linseed oil, and either stain, whatever stain it was, or we bought colorant from Pittsburgh Paints, raw sienna, and we made our natural putties with it. Mixed it all up, we made our sealers. Filler. We always trial filled parquet. And believe it or not, you can use plain old white sheetrock mud to fill a floor that's going to be stained, and it
Stained.
takes stain just like anything else does. You know,
A lot of today's wood fillers, they're a lot like sheetrock mud.
it's sheetrock mud.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it is. And you can use it white, and if you're staining it, it just stains just like your floor
Takes the
does.
stain even better than the wood
Right,
dust does. The glue down floors, the parquet floors, the H block that they had down south. People talk about the South and slab construction, but there was a time when the mills got mothballed and plants weren't making anything, and the South brought it all back together by building huge tract developments. They had the weather for
right.
it and putting parquets down. And
Yeah,
today it's a little different when you go down to Florida or you go down south, and some houses do have second floors and they get that frame
right.
construction.
They had, all the World War II houses were 9 by 9 block floor. You know, that's what we called it.
Everybody's got a 99 block, H block. Bruce made a H block, and like you
Yeah,
said, base housing had that all over the place. Well, pre 54 too. Up until then, that's all there was if you got an FHA loan because they didn't approve anything until, God bless, Dalton, Georgia came up with the flame retardant carpet. Almost put us all out of business. Every time something's
right,
invented, comes out of Dalton, Georgia, and it affects us and our paycheck, Jeannie.
right. Well, when my dad first started, he didn't install the floor. The carpenters installed them, and he just sanded and finished. So
Yeah, I'm sure they
that was
prefer
way
that
before
today.
my time.
I was reading online. I read everything that you write, and you contribute a lot to the Wood Floor Business magazine. Matter of fact, I think you, me, and a bunch of others are on the editorial board.
Right.
I saw something that you had written. Did you know Donnie Bollinger?
I actually applied for a job between the time I was working for my dad and the time that I came to Durham. I actually applied for a job with Don Bollinger because I went to Seattle. I thought I might move there.
Okay.
And by the time that he called me back, I was already working for another company and, things were going fine there. But he called me back and I said, sorry, but I already took this other job. If I had probably hired on with him, I would probably have made that my career because I really respect the guy. But I didn't even know who he was at that point.
Well, that's
And
why I asked you because I
yeah,
didn't either. Before I started a training program years ago for Wood Pro, and you had to study with me for 3 months, everything. And when you're done blindfolded, you had to identify 7 species of wood, and some of them were sight and smell, but we didn't have YouTube or video or the NWFA manual like it is today. I found these VHS videos, Don Bollinger's, installation.
Yeah,
And if you
right.
go back, they were in his living room, and you can see his wife's feet in the background tapping, like, Donnie, don't be ripping up our house again. And he did some. They were so it would they were in, they got very good when you started getting into them. He really knew what he was doing, and he would talk about install, sand, and finishing. And when I heard that you mentioned him, I'm like, wow, I must have taught his 2 videos for years. The guy's a pretty sharp guy.
Yep. But anyhow, but I decided that Seattle was way too far away from the rest of the world, so
Sure.
I came back down here. So, but I started by myself. I built my business up just little by little.
Sure.
I hired one guy. We worked. Hired another guy. Hired another guy. And eventually it got to be a pretty decent sized company.
Did you change roles? A lot of times, that's where you wind up not having the opportunity to do as much of the work because you got so much else going on, quotes and paying the bills.
Yeah, I still did a lot of the work. It's hard to remember when because it just evolved over 30 years.
Right.
Over 30 years, my business evolved, and we got into more work and more work, and one time I had probably about 18, 20 guys out in the field,
Sure.
and you know, it, it's hard to do any work then. You basically when you do your work is, I mean, when we would do commercial jobs, I would go out and I would sometimes go work on those, especially when we worked for Duke. I would go out and I would go in before the guys and get things laid out to where when the guys came in, they were working and not standing around figuring out what to do.
Sure.
I came in and ran the job. And that's what I did. I ran the jobs, and said, this is what we're doing, do it.
Yeah, that there's a lot of work involved there. So did you have to travel like in the area that you're in Durham? Once you landed there, you stayed there a long time, right? That's your area. Is that a
That's
college
my
town?
We have two little colleges here.
Okay.
One is the University of North Carolina, UNC Tar Heels,
Yep.
and then we have another little small university called Duke.
Yeah. Two little places that might wind up on your March Madness picks this year. That's my tip of the
Right,
day for gamblers.
right. And I've made my living in Durham, which is where Duke is, and Chapel Hill, which I can get to Chapel Hill in 15 minutes from my old shop or less.
Does that type of area generate flooring work? I know there must be a lot of remodeling, et cetera, but is it different than just plopping around anywhere? I know I see a lot of businesses, any type, that do very well in college communities.
I was looking for a college town when I moved here. I was very well an adult, and I was looking for a place that had a college, that had a major airport. So it was just right for me. It's a very liberal, progressive area.
Sure.
We're a sea of blue here, right where I am, and a larger sea of red sometimes.
In a larger city.
But it was just right for us.
Hey, that works out fine. Was there a lot of travel involved for what you did?
Uh,
A lot of these people in our industry, they'll go to Wisconsin or they'll go to wherever the next show is. But have you traveled a lot? So a lot of flooring people get to Europe. They might go to the Lagler plant. They might go to wherever. Was there a lot of travel involved during your career?
I really didn't like traveling over 30 minutes to a job.
Right.
So,
So let's not be going to Vegas.
yeah, I like the small area, because it was just me basically. And later on, it was Robert Honeycutt. He took over all of the sanding and finishing crews. But early on, it was just me doing all of the thing, and I couldn't estimate everything and supervise the work. I needed a small area, so that's what I did. And it worked out well for me. People have all these fancy business plans and this and that, and I've always said, my business plan was to bring in more money than I had to send out. And that was my basic business plan the entire time I was in business. And it worked out well for me. So, but I will tell you this, that when it came time to hire people to do things that I needed them to do that I couldn't do, I did try to hire the best people. I hired a great accountant. I hired people that told me what to do with my money, and I made good business decisions. I didn't look at things. I was able to look at the big business picture without much of a business plan. I bought real estate for my
Good
business. And when I bought my first little building, it was a little cardboard sign tacked up on the telephone pole. And, I worried, could I pay the rent? And I bought this business for $37,000.
Hey, there you go.
A building and an empty lot behind it.
You can't get a set of tires for that right now.
Right.
You must have made some good decisions because, listen, if you're still making $5 an hour to run an edger, Genia, you're going to have to move in with us some way. Okay.
Yeah, I made good business decisions, and I hired good people that knew what they were doing.
Did you drag any family along? You can't get Becky behind an edger? Do you get anybody in the family? Did you bring him into the business?
When I first started in Durham, Becky swept for me because I didn't use a vacuum. We swept, used a paintbrush to dust the corners and everything.
Yeah.
She swept for me and she wiped stains for me.
There you go.
And then she was my secretary. Well, she was, but then when I was 39, I decided, well, you know what? I think I'll have a kid.
Yeah.
And she was the secretary at the business full time. And we thought, well, we didn't know anything about kids. And we thought, well, I'll just drive him around in my truck for half a day, and then he can stay in the office for half a day. And shortly after I had him, Becky retired, and we hired a full-time secretary.
Oh, no.
So.
Yeah, but Steve, then what? What happens after that? Then you probably started coaching, right, and going to all sorts of other things.
I was a Little League coach for 5 years.
Yep.
In Durham. From the time my son was 7 until he was 12, I was not only the first woman Little League coach, I was the first lesbian women's Little League
Look at you, pioneering everything.
So that took a lot of people getting used to.
You probably you rattled a lot of cages. You're out sanding them, and now you're out pitching them and out batting them. Way to go. Good for you.
I did. I actually coached our 12-year-old All-Stars. So.
Oh, that is awesome. Well, isn't that a good thing about a business? I coached soccer for 35 years. I played. And I could go back to my high school and coach because I just had to get my crew set up a couple days a week and then go get on the bus. But it is rewarding. Did you do most of the coaching with your son's teams?
Yes. Yeah, I was the head coach. I loved my coaching years. It was a lot of fun. I went straight from work to practice or games, and then you eat whenever you can.
Sure, absolutely.
But I loved coaching baseball.
Now, how old is your son now?
He is 26. He'll be 26 on the 28th of on this Friday. Going
to school or running a big machine? Or both?
He is actually works for a little company called Deloitte.
Okay.
It's actually a big international company. He worked for me. I tried to get him into the business. When he was in high school, I paid him $20 an hour to work.
Oh, you'll get him, Genie. Don't worry. They never escape. They'll all come back.
He took Chinese. My sister's an acupuncturist, and he was always close with her. And he took Chinese in middle school and high school, and he was actually a double major in college in Chinese and business. And then he got a a fully paid scholarship to get his master's in business. And then he got a fellowship, the John McCain Fellowship,
Sure.
and he worked for the um, Defense Department for a year. And now he's working for Deloitte, and he's actually in the Pentagon working for on Ukraine issues right now.
Well, if he
So
speaks Chinese, we might need him more than a new edger by the end of the year.
he speaks and writes Chinese, and actually, there have been several times because we have a big international community here, with the universities and Research
Yes.
Triangle Park.
Mhm.
And I was in a woman's basement one day. She's a native Chinese, and I called him and I said, "Would you please interpret for me?" So I had him on the phone, and I told him, and he was our interpreter.
It's impressive, isn't it?
It is impressive. He reads and speaks Chinese fluently.
That's amazing.
So
Because you speak flooring, though. I wrote an article once called "Flooranguage" for Wood Floor Business because we have a language, and it's when you see somebody speak a foreign language, and I just started taking Spanish because so many people in our company, and I feel like I'm missing out on something. And I watch them speak. I'm so impressed. And you see somebody that can speak Chinese, it just seems amazing that they can pull that off. I speak, edger, scraper, drum machine.
right, right.
At least we speak that language. I don't think we're going to be dragging our flooring people into any world peace issues, but we'll get there soon enough. We'll give them a floor when we're done with it. There's not an institution on this planet in any government that doesn't have exquisite hardwood flooring. You can ask Spriglin if you don't believe me.
That's right.
And he told me to tell you hello.
He's a good guy. I like Sprig.
We hit it off. We had a fun podcast, and he calls me. He'll be like, "Who are you talking to?" I go, "I'm talking to Genia Smith." He's like, "Oh, I got stories."
Uh-oh.
No, you're good. He's very, very cool about that. Are you still a NOFMA inspector?
uh, well, not
Is anybody?
I was certified by NOPMA. I tell you what, that's one of the men that I have the most respect for in our business is Nick Miller. And he took me under his wing because I had a great interest in floors and what happens to them and what goes wrong with them. And he was the finest teacher that I ever had.
Did you do that as part of your business with Accent, or
Yes.
most people do it congruently? Because sometimes you can't just do inspections typically as a business. That you got to kind of
Right.
combine the two.
It was a sideline for me. It was something that really interested me that I loved doing. That it kind of caught me. It just was something that was just so interesting to me. Because I have a pretty scientific mind. I was a geology major for a number of years, and I've taken tons of math and in college, and it just really piqued my interest, and I just like doing
I think
it.
people find that like when we're whether we with like customers or talking with people from around the country, whether I'm talking to somebody in LA that has a really high end showroom, or you talk with somebody like Spriglin down in DC who's doing custom renovations of historical places, or Michael Purser, or people from around the country, you start to realize where you fit in. I identified like you did. I like the science. I like the inspections. I like the writing. I knew Bill Price Sr. and worked with him, did some lab work. And the nicest thing he ever said, he said, you're this writer that wants to be a floor guy, and I'm a floor guy that wants to be a writer.
Yeah, he was a great guy. I remember him at the convention saying, "Please wear your respirators.
Yeah.
Yeah, please wear your
And
respirators."
he
And
learned
that's
that the very hard way.
yes, he did, and many of us have.
We had that this week. I had a customer bragging about, oh, yeah, we never this, that. And I said, honestly, you have to wear your respirator. Dust is a carcinogen, the fumes, everything, even water-based finishes. Don't kid yourself. You don't want that in your lungs.
No kidding. There were a lot of things about the flooring business that were really, to me, not quite on the up and up.
Okay.
We were never warned properly about the additives to water-based finishes. In my opinion.
Well,
You know,
you'd use sealers and coatings that had MEK and they had sterates, everything. And then you
yeah,
get in your van and you would drive up the road, open the windows, and it felt like you did a swig of booze. You could feel it in your lungs. And when they had the first catalyzed urethanes, I remember thinking they smelled fine for a while, but I can still feel it in my lungs, just like the other junk.
right.
Hey Wood Floor Pros, this is Kim Walgren, the longtime editor of Wood Floor Business. If you have an amazing wood floor project that's been completed or will be completed between February 1st, 2022 and January 31st, 2023, make sure you enter it in the Wood Floor Business 2023 Design Awards. Categories include Best Residential Floor, Best Commercial Floor, Best Gymnasium Floor, Best Stairs, Best Next Generation Project, which is for a company owned by someone aged 35 or under, and Reader's Choice. Entries are free, and winners receive prizes from contest sponsors. Go to wfbmag.co/enter23DA for more information, or just go to woodfloorbusiness.com and enter Design Awards 2023 in the search box. That's it for now. Let's get back to Stephen's conversation with longtime wood floor pro, Genia Smith.
When you were doing your business and inspecting, that also comes with everything from doing claims and setting up jobs and helping people get on track. Everybody that we talk to, that's whether they've owned a shop or an installation company or whatever, one of the things you have got to do is collect money and get paid. You must have some advice or some stories about that part of the job. We all do.
I love selling. Selling was my thing.
Yep.
I went in, people told me what they wanted, and I told them what they needed.
Right. That's right.
I want this. This is what you need.
Just what you need today.
Love selling.
Was it difficult collecting? It depends on the economy and who you're doing business with, but you have troubles collecting.
Yeah. Collecting is a pain in the ass.
Yep.
I don't care how good a work you do. It doesn't matter. And I was always pretty lax. Even the last year that I gave my customers 30 days to pay me.
Yep.
At 30 days, I called.
Right.
Most of my customers paid pretty well. I never had that many problems collecting. I had some jobs where I made a mistake of going to small claims court a couple of times.
Oh yeah. No
Big
one wins there, right, Jeannie? Nobody wins that one.
I had it written in my contract one time that I advised the woman against filling her floor and did not guarantee it. And she insisted we do it. So we did it. And then she sued me because it popped out. And the judge told me, well, even though it's in your contract, you know you shouldn't do it. So, but you did it. So I lost it. Wasn't much money, but it was like an eye opener.
If that contract is like texting, if it's more than 144 characters, you got no contract.
I never had that many problems collecting money, but you have to collect. I had a newspaper out. It's the same thing. You got to collect.
I know, right? It's crazy. So you didn't take over your father's business. You set up your own whole entity.
I set up my whole, and the reason we picked accent in my partner, my wife now, after 43 years, we finally got married April 30th.
Congratulations. By my birthday. Way to go. Good for you. Good call.
But she came up with the name Accent because, one, I had an accent, and two, it would be one of the first one in the Yellow Pages.
Right. Oh, you got it. That's right. Remember then, if you could, anything with an A, we had people would move here from any other country, and the first thing they would put an ad in would be AAA, AAA, 4A flooring. Right. We had a young Korean friend of mine that he started his business. He called it Anthony's Hardwood Flooring. And I said, Fong, you can't even say Anthony. He goes, they call me first. Okay. All right. That's a smart fella right there. Well, so how long, Becky and you have been together like 28, 34, are you up to 43 years?
43
And
years.
was she with you in the beginning when you were only getting $5 for edging?
Yep, she was.
See, that's love. You stick with somebody that's making five. My wife and I have been 38 years. If she knew what I was getting paid to edge back then, she wouldn't have stuck around.
Right?
That's so funny. Is there
Yep.
so in what are you doing now? I got to backpedal a little bit. What are
What
you
am I
doing?
doing
Yeah,
now?
what's that?
I'm retired. I'm traveling.
Yeah.
I'm playing pickleball.
Oh, hey, you know what I'm doing? I line pickleball courts. That is
Do,
part of my job. And I don't know what it is yet, but it looks fascinating.
I used to, when I worked for my dad, we did gyms in summertime in these little high school gyms, and he taught me how to line courts. And I was there when the first 3-point line came out, and we bought plumbing pipe,
Pipe.
and that's how we lined the first 3-point lines that I ever lined.
Hey, you
Was
put
buying
those points in
plumbing
the
pipe.
right place. That's all you need.
It had to hit the top of the key.
That I know. I took two 14-foot pieces of Brazilian cherry 1-inch feature strip, dovetailed them, bolted them together, and I drilled holes 2 inches apart with pencils to make my 3-point arc. And I got going. It was beautiful until I hit the first row of flooring and it broke all the lead in the
Yeah.
pencil.
Well, like I said, we just did it with pipe and went
Pipe.
off of our nails from the top of the key.
That makes
We were a little smarter than you.
Makes perfect sense. Well, that's the one thing I still do in the summers. I'll get calls to do foursquare and pickleball and volleyball and
Yeah.
basketball. A lot of people don't know how to paint lines, or it's the math that they're a little, I think,
Yeah,
intimidated by.
right, right.
I love it when you set up a gymnasium and you show up and everything was there, and when you get there, it's all been sanded, and you ask, did anybody mark these or label these? Because kind of like to know where they were before you started, and then you got to start right from the beginning.
We use nails in the corners of the
Yeah,
courts.
we used to drill the corners out, and
Yeah.
then if they hired us, we'd go back and put little nails in there so that you could
Yeah.
at least find them. And a lot of times you can still see the lines burnished
You can
into
still-
the woods.
yeah.
Yeah. What was when you were doing flooring? What was your absolute favorite part of the work?
My favorite, I guess seeing it when I was finished and giving them the bill.
I can see that. There is a lot of satisfaction that most flooring people will tell you they look at their work and they're not overly thrilled with it because it's we're not working in a vacuum chamber. It's difficult to get furniture quality, but you must have been at that point where you're now going around and doing other jobs and saying, I think we did that one across the street.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so many times that, we're a pretty small area. And I mean, I see people all the time. Hey, how you doing? I have no idea who they are, but I've done thousands and thousands of floors here, so people know me. But the strangest person that ever said, "Hey, I know you." My son Becky and I were in the middle of Tanzania. It was Christmas Eve, and we were out on safari, but we had went to this nice hotel kind of in the middle of it, and they had a buffet, and we were going through the buffet line, my son and I, and said, "Hey, are you Genia Smith?" I said, "Yes." She said, "You did my floors. I live in Chapel Hill." And I always had the same reply to anybody that ever told me that we did their floors. I said, "Did we do a good job?"
We're not in trouble, are we? You're not serving me papers, are you?
But
You should have asked her for a Sharpie and given him an autograph.
in the middle of Africa.
In the middle of Africa.
Yeah,
That crazy kind of stuff happens, doesn't it?
it does. It's a small, small world.
Have you done any particular projects that you were either super proud of or they're like, some people have that brush with greatness. We did so-and-so's floors or anything.
Well, not really, but we've done a lot of floors for Duke. We did
Oh, nice.
we did Duke Chapel. which was an awesome job. You know, Duke Chapel is it's the most historical building on Duke's campus, and they're pretty swanky university, and we did their floors.
I went to a wedding. The woman, friend of mine, she graduated from Chapel Hill, and her husband, it didn't matter where he went, it didn't carry any weight with her. But when they got married, they got it in a barn. Half was all sky blue and dark blue, and the other half was whatever his side was. It seemed like her side had a lot more going on, but she loved that school. She wore her Tar Heel colors, and she was ready to rock.
You know, I've always been just as proud of the one room, and this has been a while ago, $500 bedroom sand and finish that looked great as the $70,000 whatever job. You know,
Sure.
to me, you're only as good as your last job. You know, and like I said, I like quality work no matter what kind of job you gave me. I gave you a price, we did it. We did good quality, you paid me.
Do you,
You know,
with your well, what's your traveling agenda? Are you trying to see um, tropical places, European places, museums? What's on your bucket list for that?
well, I like to scuba dive,
Oh, good for you.
and
I'm a diver.
I've been a couple of times since I retired, and I like that, but I only like tropical water, so.
Genie snorkel e Cozumel. I see. I learned that in my Spanish last week. I know how to say I can snorkel in your driveway. That's the only thing I've learned. I'm a certified diver, Genie. I went to college in Tampa, and
Yeah,
I loved it. It's a whole other world, isn't it?
I love to scuba dive. So, you know, and I've been to the south of France. We took my son and his girlfriend for 12 days, and I have a 93-year-old mother still.
Outstanding.
So, you know, I plan on spending a little more time with her, even though we go there quite a bit. But I don't know. I don't want to hit Europe in the wintertime. Like I said,
Oof.
I like warm weather. So,
Well, yeah, you live
but
in the right area. We don't have that up here. We have
I,
July and we have winter.
I think I've only been in town for about a week and a half at a time since I retired on June 30th. So
And that's
I
it.
got I got bikes. We e-bike. We e-biked all over the Netherlands a couple of years ago when I was still working. But I've always loved traveling, and I've always have traveled. I had a guy that wanted to buy my business one time, a long time ago, when my son was like 7 or 8, and it wasn't enough to retire him. It was a pretty good chunk. And I thought about it, and I said, well, you know, can't really do this, but there's one thing that I would change. I would travel more. So you know what I did? I just took the time off and I started traveling.
And
You
everywhere
know,
you've traveled, come on, everywhere, and I guarantee it, you've got caught looking at a hardwood floor too long.
I've been all over the world. I just put a picture on Facebook. We were at this famous museum in south of France. I can't remember it, but the walls were offset to the square tiles on the floor. And I put on there, this is the thing that I noticed most in
Right.
this museum.
Isn't that terrible? My wife smacks me anywhere we go. She's like, look, I told you, my sister's a ranger out in Wyoming. She took me in the middle of the desert. I mean, the desert. And we went down this off-road dirt road, and we're traveling and traveling and traveling. And her husband's a miner, and he's also a cattle herder. And I don't know why we're going to this place. We get in the middle of this canyon, and she goes, come over here, come over here. And I'm really not interested. She goes, get over here. So my sister popped me one. So I go over, and I had to read. I sent it to Kim at Wood Floor Business Magazine. I'm reading and reading about this desert plateau. And what does it say at the bottom? This is the first known site of the very first hardwood floor in America. And they listed the people that had been shot and killed or had gunfights or spilled a beer on it. And there's a little memorial. I'm like, and I'm such an idiot. Oh, now I'm thrilled. I'm in the middle of the desert, all geeked out because there was a hardwood floor out here 300 years ago.
Who knew?
It's an occupational hazard. Well,
It is.
well, I've taken a ton of your time, and this is what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions, just a few of them,
Okay.
and I will let you escape my clutches, and we can go off and do things.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
When you're doing flooring, what is your biggest pet peeve?
when people don't look at the space and realize where the natural areas are that people are going to be looking at. They don't start in a place which is the natural center of the floor, whether it's like a whole house. They start somewhere, and it doesn't matter where they end up. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
They don't start in a focal point.
No, we just did a podcast about this, and it was all about spatial design. And some people, especially with a lot of this is artistry. So you have a little bit of an idea for design and space and structure. And if you just slap a floor down, just the smallest thing can really throw your eyes off. It's unsightly. It's not pretty. A crooked floor is not good. But also, where are you putting medallions and moldings and borders? No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Now, if you had not gotten into the wood floor industry, which none of us know how we got into here, where do you think you would have been doing?
Gosh. Probably a geologist somewhere.
Well, we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about that sometime, because there's so much going on.
Way with that.
Well, there's petrified flooring. You can go in that direction.
I guess.
Is there anybody in the industry that you haven't met that you'd like to meet or hang out with?
Haven't met.
Or you just know them and you'd like to hang out with them because they're good floor people?
Not anybody that I haven't met already. I've been around forever.
Everybody see that? Because everybody says they want to meet you. That's why.
There's this woman on She Sands on Facebook that does these videos, and I think she works with her brother.
We'll meet her together. We'll get her autograph. I think it was on Instagram and on Facebook. She Sands. And all right, tell us the truth, and you can't lie, because we're coworkers. Genie, in your house, you got carpet. Is there carpet in your home? Because I will ask Becky, and she will squeal on you.
There's not a single scrap.
God bless you. Get that crap out of there.
No.
Well, listen, I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time to catch up with me and talk. And we will do this again soon sometime. I'm supposed to fly out and meet all you people at some point, so I will come say hello to you.
All right, that sounds good, Steve.
Thank you, Jeannie. I really appreciate it. We'll talk again. All right, take care. All right, bye-bye.
To read Jeannie's article about how she prioritized her family while owning and running her wood flooring business and prepared to retire early and sell her business, see the December 2022, January 2023 issue of Wood Floor Business. Don't get a copy? Make sure you sign up for your free subscription at woodfloorbusiness.com. You can also find all the digital issues at the WFB website, too. If you like this episode, please be sure you rate, review, and share this podcast. Thanks for listening.